Hello and welcome back. This is PSL number 3, and this week we are looking at a little bit of geometry, and we're practicing a little bit of our slope with the y equals mx plus b for review. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Today's number 1 says find the equation for the linear equation. So the first thing that I want to review is our slope intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, where m is going to be representing our slope, or like our rise over run, or y over x. And then our b represents our y-intercept, aka what does y equal when x is 0. Okay, I also want you to recall this formula. In order to find slope, one way that we can do it is to take two separate coordinates, an x comma y and another x comma y, and we can call these xy1 and xy2, and then we can use the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 and simplify that to find our slope. So we're going to be using that to start off with to find our m, or our slope. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to find 2 points on our graph. Being the fact that they're giving us this xy table, we can choose any 2 of these 4 points, and it wouldn't matter what 2 you picked. If you use 2 different ones from somebody next to you, you'll still end up getting the same slope. So just for this example, I'm going to use these 2 coordinates here, and I'm going to call this my x1 and my y1, and then this one my x2 and this one my y2. So I'm going to come over to my formula and I'm going to start substituting. So I'm looking for my y2. So in this example, my y2 is 3. So I'm going to put in my y2. Then I'm going to subtract my y1. In this example, it's 1. That one's gone. And that's going to be all over x2, which in this example is 0, minus our x1 is a negative 2. So I'm going to keep minus a negative. And then I've done all my substitution. So now when I simplify, I've got 3 minus 1. 3 minus 1 is 2. And then in the bottom, I've got 0 minus a negative 2. So this is a keep, change situation. We've got a subtraction. So we're going to change this to plus and then change the sign. So we're going to end up having 0 plus 2, which is a positive 2. When we simplify that, we can see that our slope is simply just 1. So far we've got y equals, we know that m is equal to 1, but we still have to figure out what our b is. So if you'll notice, if we want to solve for this b right here, we will have an x and a y that we could work with, but we need to figure out an x and a y. So the easiest way to do this is to come back over to our table and use one of the coordinates x comma y's to substitute in there. So if I use this first coordinate right here, negative 2 comma 1, where my x is negative 2 and my y is 1, we can come over and we can substitute it in. So we get that x is negative 2, so I'm going to substitute that here. And then our y is positive 1, so I'm going to substitute that there. Now what we can do is we can simplify and we can solve for b. So we're going to simplify this right here. 1 times a negative 2, I'm going to bring everything else down, is a negative 2 plus b. And then to get this b by itself, we want to get rid of negative 2, so we're going to add 2 to both sides. So 2 plus 1 is 3, so our b is equal to 3. So substituting back in, for our slope, we had a slope of 1, and then the b that we just found was a positive 3, so we're going to have a plus 3 here. So when you go to simplify that whole formula to get our final answer, the equation for this line is y equals 1x can just be simply stated as x, and then bring down our b plus 3. So that is your answer. And of course, to get full credit on your PSL, I would want you to show all the work that we have done up to this point. Okay, here we have another example or another problem where we're going to be doing the exact same thing. It's asking us to find the equation for the linear equation. The only thing that's different about this one from the last question is that instead of giving us a list of coordinates, they are giving us a graph, and we're going to have to pull those coordinates off the graph. So when I look at this, I can see a point right here and right here. And you can see those continue on. So I need to name these coordinates, and I can start a list like we had on our last example where we have an x comma y. So this first point, I'm walking to 0, but I'm going up to 96. The next point I'm going over to 1 and only up this time to 88. Then to 2, up to 80. And you can kind of see that pattern, but I'm going to stop here for now. Because what we're going to do now is we're going to use this formula right here to solve for our slope. And to do that, we need to pick 2 points. So I'm going to choose the points 0, 96, and 1, 88, these two right here at the top of my list. And we will substitute them in. So over here I've got my m equals y2. So our y2 for this example would be 88. Minus y1, which is 96, and that's going to be all over x1, which is, or x2, I'm sorry, which is 1, minus x1, which is 0. And we need to simplify that, so 88 minus 96 is equal to negative 8 all over 1, so our slope is negative 8. So I've done a little substitution here. You can see that so far we've got our m equals negative 8. So if we substitute that in, we see that our equation so far says y equals negative 8x plus b. We still need to find this b, which I've put in blue, and the way that we're going to do that is by taking an x comma y over here from our table or from our graph. So I'm going to come over and I'm actually going to pick this point right here, 1, 8, where 1 is our x and 88 is our y. And I'm going to simply substitute them in. So 88 equals, bring down negative 8 times our x, this time is 1, plus our b. We're going to simplify from there. So we've got a negative 8 on this side, so in order to move it, I'm going to do the opposite, which is to add 8. So I get 96 equals b. So with a little substitution, I'm going to go ahead and put my slope in. I'm going to put my b in, and you can see that our final equation is y equals negative 8x plus 96. And again, just like number 1, I would want you to show all the work that we've done up to this point in order to receive full credit for this. For the last 3 examples that we do today, numbers 3 through 5, we're going to find the circumference and the area for each circle. So we're doing kind of 2 and 1. Circumference being 2 pi times radius, and our area being pi radius squared. So number 3 is asking us to find the circumference and area for a circle that has a radius of 3 inches. So I've gone ahead and I've drawn the circle with the radius of 3, if that helps some of you. So to find circumference, we're going to use the formula 2 times pi times radius. So 2 times pi times 3. I'm going to simplify that down to 6 pi, and then we are going to put this into our calculator, and we want to find it to the nearest tenths. So to do this, when you look at your answer, you get like an 18.84 blah 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 blah. So you're going to round it to just that first decimal place, which is going to make it 18. Because this number is a 4, we're going to leave it as 8, so 18.8. Circumference is just in inches, not inches squared. Next, we're going to do our area, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use our formula area equals pi, and we're going to substitute our measurement of 3 for our radius, 3 squared. So simplifying 3 times 3, that's 9. So 9 times pi. And then you'll want to go straight to your calculator, and you'll want to put that in. And the decimal that I'm getting, it's 28.27. Doesn't matter what the rest says. But this number is a 7 this time, so I'm going to want to round my 2 up. So it's going to become 28.3. And because it's area, it's going to be in inches squared. So that is my area of that circle. Okay, up next we have a circle with a radius of 8 yards. So we're using the exact same formulas that we used before. This time we're going to do the same thing, but our radius is 8 yards instead of 3 inches. So let's start our substitution. So for our circumference, we're going to do 2 times pi, and instead of r, we know that r is equal to 8 yards this time. So simplifying that, we get 16 pi, which we're going to enter into our calculator using our pi button. And when I do that, I get 50.26, etc. But when I simplify that, because this is a 6, we're going to go up. So it's going to become 50.3, and this was in yards for this example. So that is our circumference. And now to do our area, we're going to start our substitution by bringing down pi, but for radius, we know radius is 8, so we're going to be squaring 8. 8 times 8 is 64, so for this calculation, we're using 64 times our pi button, and we end up getting 201.06. So 6 is bigger than 5, so we're going to go up. So it becomes 201.1. And again, area is always in a measurement that's squared, so square yards. Okay, our last example is for us to find the circumference and area of a circle with a diameter this time of 12 meters. So I'm going to be using the same formulas. Some of you know the circumference is 2 or pi d also, but just to kind of keep it consistent for those of you who are practicing to still memorize these formulas, I'm going to just keep doing what we've been doing. So in order to use these formulas, we see that we need radius, not a diameter measurement. So if our radius, our diameter is 12, and we just want a radius, we just want half of that. So half of that is going to be 6. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So the number that we're going to be using for our radius is a radius of 6. So to do our circumference, we're going to do 2 times pi times 6, which is going to simplify to 12 times pi. So our calculation is 12 times our pi button, giving us 36.69. And of course, this one is bigger than 5, so we're going to round up. So it becomes 36.7 meters. And now we can do our calculation for our area. So area equals pi radius squared. This time our radius is 6. So we're going to square 6. 6 times 6 is 36, so we get 36 pi. And when we calculate that out, we get 113.09 blah blah blah. But 9, again, bigger. We've had a lot that were bigger than 5, so we're going to do 113.1, and this is in meters squared. And that is our area.